You are listening to the wide world of Wu. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Tyler. We have Andy with us. We will be exploring the heights and depths of the Wu-Tang Empire. How you doing, Andy?
Not too bad. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Chilling. Excited to get this podcast off the ground. It's been in the works for a while. We've got an Instagram page that's going. We'll get some info on that a little bit later, but we're just going to introduce the show a little bit today. We're going to be taking deep dives in all directions with the Wu-Tang Clan. But first, we're going to just get to know each other a little bit, talk about how we came to be exposed to the Wu-Tang Clan, what drew us to them. So, Andy, tell me what was the first time you either heard the name Wu-Tang Clan or saw the name printed or heard them. What do you remember?
Okay. That's a big question. I have an older brother who's my only fully blood related sibling, out of many siblings. And he is 7 years older than me. So the first time I ever really heard of and saw Wu-Tang Clan, he had this shirt I remember that had a picture like with all these squares, kind of like Brady Bunch style, with
Mm-hmm.
all the members, and it said Wu-Tang Clan. And then I remember around that time, um, I saw the video for Triumph at some point around that time. And that was kind of like the first time I'd really actually heard them. And the first introduction I had was that shirt.
So was this like Wu-Tang Forever era, like in the moment, or was it like years later you came across the video?
Oh, no, that was like around that time. I was pretty little. I had to have been probably like 8, somewhere around there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it just did it click with you right away, or like what was your initial reaction?
Well, um, yeah, totally. Around that point in time, I remember, or at least like, I mean, there's obviously, I was very young, so some of those like years kind of lumped together, and I don't know exactly when they were, but I would say around that point in my life, I was kind of already like enjoying like hearing like Biggie, like Ready to Die. I'd heard some music from that album from my brother's room. Like the first hip hop song I really remember liking was Woo Ha by Busta Rhymes. Um, and yeah, man, I mean, I remember when I heard Wu Tang Clan. I guess my point is that like I just already had this love for gritty hip hop, even though I didn't really know what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I heard that, and it was just like, I don't know what this is, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you were
Especially,
8?
I was probably about 8, or somewhere around 8, 9, 10,
Man.
like age. Yeah,
Wow. The blessing of having an older sibling. I mean, I'm sure there are probably some cons to that pro, but that's a pretty good one.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely like our relationship got better over the years, but I will say I definitely he knows too. I used to go in his room and just take his CDs for the day and try to put them back in there without him noticing. And
Right on.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I think my first exposure might have been an older brother too, like a friend's older brother. I'm an only child. So,
okay,
this was like a little bit later. I was probably 12 when I saw the ODB first solo CD. And
oh man,
yeah, so I didn't have any context for it though. I didn't have MTV. I didn't have hardly any CDs myself. I had like Green Day's Dookie and like some MC Hammer tapes. I might have had
right,
Coolio at one point, but I didn't really have a lot. And so this was like really abstract in my mind. Like I didn't know that ODB was in Wu Tang. That was like probably my first exposure to anyone in Wu-Tang. Um, I think I had probably around that time, maybe a little bit later, I started getting the Columbia Music House like CD catalogs. Did you ever get those?
Oh yeah, I remember those.
I would
That's
just
classic.
I would just lustily look through at all these different artists and releases, and I definitely remember seeing Wu-Tang Clan, but it was kind of mixed up in my mind with Fu Schnickens, who were like kind of around the same time, like
Yep.
another hip hop, like multi-member hip hop act with I don't know, vaguely similar name. um,
Yeah.
so it wasn't really until I was 16, 16. I was home sick one day and watching. This was when I finally did get cable, like later on in high school, watching some videos, and it was like a countdown. It was like a hip hop countdown, and um, it was Gravel Pit. So this was like probably around 2000 ish, 2001 maybe. So Gravel Pit was in rotation, and it was just so different from everything else on that countdown, which was like, I don't know, big timers and like Cash Money Millionaires. I'm sure like Nelly was on there. You know what I mean? Like, um, and then there was this video of like this group of guys in this. Have you ever seen the video for Gravel Pit?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like Flintstones come to life. And I was just
Yeah.
like, what? And it had this weird chorus that I like really couldn't make heads or tails of. Like, Wu-Tang is the CD that I travel with. Like, what are you talking about? And it was just really interesting to me. And so but like I wasn't like fully into it then. Like I thought it was cool, and I'm pretty sure I like Napstered that song or LimeWired it or something. No, it probably would have been Napster at that time. Um, and then I also, for some reason, I Napstered Jizz's Fame from his Legends of the Liquid Sword, and I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool. So it was just like these two kind of things for a long time, and then it wasn't until, and this is like kind of embarrassing, it wasn't until Josh Thomas's 21st birthday at the Triple Rock that I heard Cream in the background, like someone put it on the jukebox, and I was like entranced by that sample, and just it was like hypnotic. And I was like, man, I need to revisit this. And and so I was back home in my hometown and went to like a used CD shop, and they didn't have Enter the Wu-Tang, but I picked up a copy of the W, and I mean, for that reason, since that was my first Wu-Tang CD, that holds a special place in my heart. But
Sure.
it was like a really long time between the first time I heard Gravel Pit in 2000, 2001 maybe, and then finally getting that first CD of mine in 2008. So uh but then after that, it just like it really started clicking for me, and I started getting like some of the solo releases. But that's another story, we'll get there. what
Sure.
was it what was it that specifically drew you to Wu-Tang? Like you mentioned the grittiness. Was there anything else that you really were drawn to them from?
Uh, I it's hard. I don't know. I guess I can easily talk about this. It's not hard to talk about. But it's just kind of a long explanation. But when I was a kid, I guess I was into what I would call like brighter sounding music.
Okay.
Like when I was really little, like I really loved the Beatles when I was a little
Yeah.
kid, and I think kids do.
Yeah,
It's just music for kids. But
for sure.
I loved Green Day. I loved the Beastie Boys. Like those were like the three first like things that I was really into
Yeah.
on my own. and it was all bright sounding. And then when I heard like from my brother, I heard like Wu-Tang, I heard, you know, the Descendants, I heard um Busta Rhymes, I heard, you know, Biggie, I heard all kinds of different stuff, and or early Atmosphere even. And I
Okay.
was like, there was something about that era where it just had this like, it sounded dusty,
Yeah.
which people now kind of say it, you know, like dusty sounding beats and stuff, but it's like it really did. And like I guess that's what kind of drew me to it, is because I'd never quite heard anything like that before, where it was like this dude's just like, or these guys or whatever are just, you know, talking really passionately over this really dirty sounding like music, you know,
Hmm.
and it's just really simple. It kind of sets up a whole atmosphere. And as
Right.
a kid, I would always kind of like sit back and just kind of like daydream while listening. And
Yeah.
yeah, back then, I guess that's what kind of drew me in, was just like, I didn't really know what they were talking about, but it was like somehow, you know, maybe because it was rhythmic, it like kind of felt good. And then also kind of made me want to like learn what they were talking about, you
Hmm.
know, and just the music itself is enough to really drag me in. I mean, especially, yeah, some of that earlier stuff is so classic,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. That
ingrained in us.
right. That atmospheric piece that you were talking about, that's a big part for me of like um I don't, maybe I would call it like cohesiveness of their albums, where like, you know, some hip hop albums are so all over the place with sounds when you, especially when you have like a bunch of different producers. But like,
Mhm.
especially the first couple Wu-Tang records, they're like, you know, from start to finish, there's that like aesthetic or something that, like a layer that like coats the entire album. And
Yeah,
I think that's part of, you know, part of what made those first Wu-Tang and first Wu-Tang solo records like so iconic, was being able to follow that from like start to finish.
for sure, man. I mean, in the sense, it kind of almost made them like more of a band in a way.
Right.
Had a
Right.
unit sound, yeah.
Right.
Because
And
like
that,
you really heard that in like really early hip hop, and then once it got to like, aside from like Gangstar and stuff like that, like once it got later, it's like you just said, like you got 5 million producers, and you know your album just sounds crazy and all over the place.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that band aspect, I think was pretty big in drawing me in, was the fact that you could have this pretty diverse collection of characters. Well, I mean, rappers who like took on personas and then eventually took on other like additional personas, like with their Wu Gambino personas. But the fact that it's almost like, I want to say it's like a little bit like Kiss, but not quite as silly. Like
Yeah,
they're kind of like larger than life dudes, right? And
yeah.
and then so they come together and they can make these incredible songs and records, but then they can also branch out. Like all of the dudes in Kiss had their own solo records and like their own
Mhm.
things that they were good at. And that's kind of the same way with Wu-Tang. I mean, I think that that metaphor um, of the forming like Voltron is like a good way to put it. You know, like all these disparate pieces can come together, but then they can like have their own strengths. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, it is. It kind of throughout the years of being a fan, and just like, especially after the documentary came out and the show came out, I was like thinking about it more, and I'm like, man, I could. It's hard enough, and you know this, to get like 4 or 5 people together to do something. You know,
Right.
I can't imagine trying to get 9 people who, especially, are very individual personalities, and you know
Right.
everything. Man,
Right.
but obviously there's a huge love there and respect there between all the members, which is pretty amazing too. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's endured is what's pretty incredible, is like you have guys like Method Man, who is a huge hip hop star, and
Uh,
he will still like jump as a guest spot onto like one of the Wu affiliates who's, relatively unknown. And that's just
yeah.
like, that's so cool. And, the fact that these guys have such different strengths and different styles, and it all
Mhm.
comes together in such a cohesive way is so cool. And along with the different styles is like, you pretty much know that there's little if no ghostwriting going on with these rappers. Like their styles are such their own. Like who else could write rhymes or tell stories like that? um
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, not to take anything away from rappers who do have ghostwriters, but it's just kind of nice to know like it's the authentic voice.
Yeah. No, it is. It's like true, true hip hop, not just, the commercialization of it. It's at its essence. It is what like hip hop is, especially to that generation and that era of people because of the kung fu and
Right.
all the stuff. It's just so like I feel like it translated really well to us as children in the 90s though too, early 2000s, because we had games like Mortal Kombat and like Street Fighter and stuff. So I think we all just kind of, and we, especially now, like a lot of kids love like anime and stuff, but it's like, yeah, no, I just, I'm growing up on the Kung Fu flicks. I don't know. I feel like it really
Yeah,
translated to that generation really well because of stuff like that.
dude.
So,
That's so funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about that too, and I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, why, what was it that made this idea so successful of like, rappers mixed with kung fu? It's kind of a, it's you wouldn't immediately think that that would work that well, but I think there are some parallels there, like martial arts and hip hop probably go together more so than other genres of music.
for
um,
sure.
in terms of like, the philosophy, the occasional violence, the just different schools. And yeah, what you were saying about like Mortal Kombat, and I was even thinking like, um, maybe even like Ninja Turtles were like, had probably, if you were like
Very
10,
true.
if you were 10 years old when Ninja Turtles were at their height, you were like probably a music listening age when Wu-Tang was going. So, they certainly capture that energy of martial arts, and had an audience who was into it. So, any other hypotheses on why they were successful given the kind of interesting, maybe not so mainstream type of aesthetic?
Uh, you know, it's hard to say because they truly like, I have a friend who keeps saying the term capturing lightning in a bottle. And and
Yeah.
I think that they just did that. Like they just had RZA just really had this, I like, this is gonna work. He had this drive, he had this idea. He was, you know, really just pushing to make it work, and he put all the, I mean, he used the whole chess strategy and put all the right pieces in the right place, and it really just did what it was supposed to do. It's hard to say because it's almost kind
Yeah.
of a phenomenon in a way to get like 9 people together and make a successful group with successful hit, like maybe not chart topping songs, but
Right.
classics that everybody, you know, somebody, you're bound to go into a room and somebody knows who Wu-Tang Clan is, and
Right.
guaranteed they maybe know a song or two.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that that piece about RZA, like putting it together and knowing, having this vision, and like I'm sure he encountered some resistance to it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've heard interviews with some of the other people being like, I don't really know. Like, That's a little out there, Staten Island and Shaolin, and you've got the aspects of like the Five Percenters and the Nation of Gods and Earth, and like it's a lot of it's not mainstream stuff, but they were so successful. I think, of course, we haven't even mentioned like how talented the rappers are. I mean,
Yeah,
like
true.
1 through 8 or 1 through 9 or however many people you want to include. um, he really had the I don't even want to say the ear to like know what would be good, but I guess he did, because have you heard or come across the story of like Master Killa and Killa Priest competing for a verse, and I think Killa Priest falling asleep, and then Master Killa
Oh,
decided to
yeah.
go for it. So that was actually Master Killa's first verse that he ever wrote, which is
I've heard that.
incredible. Yeah. And so like having I don't know, the insight to recognize the potential in that is just next level. And knowing like what kind of personalities would work. So I don't know. It's just like lightning in a bottle, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Just capturing
Yeah,
that.
it's just like
Uh,
he was right place, right time. He
yeah.
knew all the right people and decided to start this like movement, and it's crazy because it's still going. Like people are still into it. It's still relevant.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely not. I never thought when I was listening to Wu-Tang Clan as a kid that, I mean, I knew I would probably always enjoy it, but I didn't
Uh-huh.
quite understand back then like what it would become.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Even though I get it, like I'm still continually impressed. Have you had like a favorite member throughout, or like has it switched at all, or who do you gravitate to?
uh, well, I think my most like consistent favorite member is always probably Inspector Deck. He's just always like, I know it's kind of a corny answer because a lot of people would agree with me on this, but I think that he's just always consistent. He's
Yeah.
always his style is very. Everyone kind of has their own style,
Hmm.
and like whereas like I love Jizza because like Liquid Swords and
Yeah.
just yeah, he's amazing, and Mess awesome because he's just got such a great personality
Yeah.
and he's done great solo stuff. But yeah, Inspector Deck just always has like, his verses just hit. They hit
Yeah.
really hard, and
Yeah.
by the end of it, you're like, "Holy crap!" And then there's more for that.
Yeah, man, I cannot disagree with that at all. And I typically, when someone asks me who's the best rapper in Wu-Tang Clan, I would gravitate towards saying Inspector Deck or Jizza.
Yeah,
But then, like, sometimes I'll be thinking about it a little bit different. I'll be like, oh man, like Ghostface has got to be up there. Raekwon has got to be up there. Um,
yeah,
you know, I really like Master Killa's style. Is like, I don't know too many rappers who have that kind of like lyrical agility and the ability to kind of like move rhymes around in different parts of the line. You God, I read his book. I like a lot of his solo stuff. Of course, like we said, RZA, like he is an incredible producer. I also like a lot of his raps, like especially in like some of the bigger posse cuts. Sometimes I think RZA has the best verses. So, man, it's really hard for me. I go back and forth a lot.
same
Um,
here.
is there what are the releases that you've like spent the most time with or gravitate towards?
Well, I definitely have obviously spent a lot of time with 36 Chambers.
Yeah.
Um, I would say Liquid Swords,
Yeah.
36 Chambers, Cal,
Okay.
uh, um, uh, uh, trying to think. I don't know. I've kind of bounced back and forth with all of them, but those were the three that I'd say I've probably spent like I always put on.
Yeah.
And ODB's first solo album.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
was like, just classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
gotta put
man.
that one.
Yeah. It's really hard to top the like first 5 years of Wu-Tang. So I'm definitely with you on like 36 Chambers and Liquid Swords. Also did my fair share of listening to Cuban Links, and the W, as I mentioned, is a pretty big one for me. I felt like that one was, maybe we'll talk about this another time, but the W, I'm like continuously impressed by the W. I think it's underrated as a Wu-Tang group effort.
Yeah.
Um,
I couldn't agree more. I love that album. I know that it's not a lot of people's favorites, but I did spend a little bit of time with that album because that's one I hadn't listened to as much.
yeah,
And I was always, by the end of the time that I'd spent with it, I was like, wow, that is a great record. And I think it gets overlooked because their first album was so huge,
right.
you know?
Right. Yeah. And it's like it was kind of it was maybe getting away from the RZA grittiness just a little bit. You know, it still has elements of that, but then it's starting to move into like a little bit more maybe cinematic at points. Some stuff
Yeah.
it's a little more pop oriented. I don't know, but it's like it's an expansion. But at the same time, it's still to me classically Wu-Tang. Anyways, we'll get into that another time. Um, I didn't want this first episode to be too long. I did want to say, just as like a caveat for anyone listening, we are fans, not experts or historians necessarily. We don't know everything about Wu-Tang. We will do our best to be accurate and fact check each other and correct any errors. So feel free to reach out to us with any corrections that you might have or anything that we skip over that you think should be noted. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We are active on Instagram. That is Wide World of Wu, all one word. Daily Wu-Tang content. So follow us on Instagram. We have a Patreon account set up, patreon.com, Wide World of Wu. If you want to get in on the ground floor, feel free to do that. That would be great. Much love to our future supporters. So that's about it for the first episode. Anything you wanted to add, Andy, as we're kind of wrapping up and looking forward to diving in more to the wide world of Wu?
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to do this. It is so far a lot of fun, and I think this whole experience is going to be fun just to kind of dive back into Wu-Tang Clan, even though, doesn't take much.
Right.
But it'll be a fun experience to research and learn and listen again. So I'm excited.
Right on, dude. So we will be back next episode. Stay tuned for what it is. I think I know what it will be. We're going to be diving into Wu-Tang albums one by one, but we will be back soon. So subscribe and stay tuned. All right. Peace.